you start being like, how could this possibly happen? And then when you read Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, it's like, people tried really hard for this to not happen. People tried, they almost reinstated a monarchy at one point to try to stop this from happening. Like they almost like
So,
abandoned democracy to try to get this to not happen.
at least the way it makes me feel is that there's a bunch of small moments on which history can turn. It's
Yes.
like small meetings,
Yes.
human
Yeah.
interactions, and that's both terrifying and inspiring because it's like um, even just attempts at assassinating Hitler, like time and time again, failed, and they were
Was it
so
like Operation
close.
Valkyrie?
Hmm.
Such a good.
And then there's also the role of, that's a really heavy burden, which is that from a geopolitical perspective, the role of leaders to see evil before it truly becomes evil, to anticipate it, and to stand up to evil, because evil is actually pretty rare in this world at a scale that Hitler was. We tend to, in the modern discourse, kind of call people evil too quickly, but
If you look at ancient history, like there was a ton of Hitlers. I actually think it's more the norm than like again going back to like my sort of intelligent design theory. I think one of the things we've been successfully doing in our slow move from survival of the fittest to intelligent design is we've kind of been eradicating, like if you look at like ancient Assyria and stuff, like that shit was like brutal, and just like the heads on the like brutal, like Genghis Khan, just like genocide after genocide after genocide. There's like throwing plague bodies over the walls and just decimating whole cities, or like the Muslim conquests of like Damascus and shit. Just like cities used to get leveled all the fucking time. Okay, get into the Bronze Age collapse. It's basically there was like almost like Roman level like society. Like there was like all over the world, like global trade, like everything was awesome through a mix of, I think, a bit of climate change and then the development of iron. Because basically bronze could only come from this, the way to make bronze, like everything had to be funneled through this one Iranian mine. And so it's like there was just this one supply chain. And this is one of the things that makes me worried about supply chains and why I think we need to be so thoughtful about. I think our biggest issue with society right now, like the thing that is most likely to go wrong, is probably supply chain collapse. Because war, climate change, whatever, like anything that causes supply chain collapse, our population is too big to handle that. And like the thing that seems to cause dark ages is mass supply chain collapse. But
interesting.
the Bronze Age collapse happened, like it was sort of like this ancient collapse that happened where like literally like um ancient Egypt, all these cities, everything just got like decimated, destroyed, abandoned cities, like hundreds of them. There was like a flourishing society, like we were almost coming to modernity, and everything got leveled. And they had this mini dark ages, but it was just like there's so little writing or recording from that time that like there isn't a lot of information about the Bronze Age collapse, but it was basically equivalent to like the medieval dark ages, but it just happened. I don't know the years, but like thousands of years earlier. And then we sort of like recovered from the Age collapse. Empire reemerged, writing and trade and everything reemerged. And then we of course had the more contemporary Dark Ages. Um,
And then over time, we've designed mechanism to lessen and lessen the capability for the destructive
there's so
power
much,
centers to
yeah.
emerge.
There's more recording about the more contemporary Dark Ages, so I think we have like a better understanding of how to avoid it. But I still think we're at high risk for it. I think that's one of the big risks right
So the
now.
natural state of being for humans is for there to be a lot of Hitlers. We just gotten really good at making it hard for them to emerge. We've gotten better at collaboration
Yes.
and resisting the power, like authoritarians to come to power.
We're trying to go country by country, like we're moving past this. We're kind of like slowly, incrementally, like moving towards like not scary old school war
Yeah.
stuff. And I think seeing it happen in some of the countries that at least nominally are like supposed to have moved past that's scary, because it reminds us that it can happen,
Yeah.
like in the places that have made like moved past, supposedly, as hopefully moved past that.
And possibly at a civilization level, like you said, supply chain collapse might make people resource constrained, might make people desperate, angry, hateful, violent, and drag us right back in.
I mean, supply chain collapse is how like the ultimate thing that caused the Middle Ages was supply chain collapse. It's like because people were reliant on a certain level of technology, like people, like you look at like Britain, like they had glass, like people had aqueducts, people had like indoor heating and cooling and like running water and like buy food from all over the world and trade and markets. Like people didn't know how to hunt and forage and gather. And so we're in a similar situation. We are not educated enough to survive without technology. So if we have a supply chain collapse that like limits our access to technology, there will be like mass starvation and violence and displacement and war.